Welcome to NADA 2026. We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, one of Dynatron Software's hometowns. I'm Maureen Martin, Vice President of Strategic Alliances, and today I have the privilege of having one of the most amazing panels of icons in our automotive industry. We were talking a little bit earlier that I think I added up the years, and I think there's 360 years of automotive heritage sitting on this panel today. So it's my privilege to introduce everyone to you first before we get started. So first, we have Michael Hayes. He's the director of the Academy for NADA, a fantastic partner of Dynatron. We have Julian Dragos. He's the Group Fixed Ops Director for the Fred Beans Automotive Group. We have David Long, Executive Manager for Hansel Automotive Group. We have Jason Yates with us. He is the VP of Fixed Operations for Ron Marhofer Automotive Family. And Liza Borches, who is always a friend to come and speak about fixed operations. She's the CEO and President for the Carter Myers Automotive Group. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, today we're going to talk about really challenging the status quo and how do we create a performance advantage. I bet that of all the meetings you've been to, whether it's the OEM meetings, being on the main stage, NADA Live, they're talking about the importance of elevating fixed operations. It is becoming the biggest driver in dealerships. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get some insights from our panelists. Please feel free to add something to anybody that is sharing. And we're going to start off with Liza. You know, many dealerships feel they're working harder than ever, but struggling to really improve profits. So when you think about fixed operations, what changes in your dealerships or just dealerships in the industry when the culture really embraces fixed operations as being that critical to the business?
First place I'll start is, as we've certainly, along with everybody else, been very focused on fixed operations for the last handful of years in particular. Once we got to that level of extremely profitable fixed operations, strong fixed absorption, and laid that foundation of profitability, it has allowed us to be more aggressive, to take more risks on the front end of our business. We've got margin compression, we've had other challenges around new car inventories, and because we've had such strong fixed operations, now we can take those risks, try new things, and know that we have fixed to kind of stand on. So that's the first part. The second thing that I'll say is by having a strong culture of fixed operations, we have opened up the leadership pool for our company and for our industry. About half of the general managers that we've promoted in the last 5 years have come from our fixed operations departments.
Okay, that is music to my ears.
So I think we're developing leaders and fixed ops that we didn't used to invest in and are creating a larger pool. And at that same time, it allows us to be one true team. Because when we've got leaders, like we've got 24 general managers, and we have a solid number of them that came from fixed ops, there's a whole different level of knowledge base that they can pull from to help each other.
We kind of talk about that as being one team, one vision. And I just love it. That is amazing.
That's impressive, aren't you?
Yeah.
They're all wanting to come and see the playbook, Liza. Anybody have anything they'd like to add on that?
Well, I just know that she does it really well, and I'm glad that we can be a part of it as well. But yeah, when you get everybody all together, you mentioned about how important it is. What is it? Group 1 just came out with it. They're so proud of their biggest accomplishment in the last quarter was getting fixed operations to be a greater part of the whole pie, how we can grow that. And quite frankly, that's key to the entire operation, like Liza said, probably more so for owner retention. The higher you get service retention, the higher the owner retention. We've had studies all over the place that show that consistently. It's if I may, I think I'm taking his words from somebody, the sale is the honeymoon, but service is the marriage.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just think it's super impressive that she's that focused in fixed ops. Her group is that focused. Half the GMs coming up through fixed ops, that's usually unheard of.
Well, and we really talked, yesterday's panel was a lot on margin erosion and how that's impacting in every area of the dealership. So I love the idea that you can take risks. Thank you for that. All right, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Dealers are often say they are data rich but insight poor. What prevents leaders from clearly seeing what fixed ops is truly performing or underperforming?
So you got to have measurable KPIs, and the DMS unfortunately does not really provide that kind of insight. So I'm not doing a sales pitch for Dynatron. Well, maybe I am, but anyway, Dynatron, breaks it down so granular. You can manage from 30,000 feet. The DMS has all the data there, but it's not, the reports that generates from out of the DMS are nothing like anything like Dynatron. So, I've ran groups from 5 stores to the one I just left was 68 stores. And just having that data, like I can pretty much tell you when a process is eroding or breaking down just by looking at the data. I can tell if they're following what I created, the path of service excellence. It's this service drive process from the time the customer books the appointment to the active delivery and everything in between. But I can look at the data and say, okay, they're not doing pre-writes. There's no way. They're not doing TOs. There's no way they're doing TOs because they got so much declined work walking out the door. If they're doing TOs, we got the wrong person getting in front of the customer. So
love it.
So the data, it allows you to manage without really even being present.
And really speaks to the culture, right? Being able to give people feedback on how they're performing. You coach, you celebrate, but you also want to give them data themselves, right? To really understand, how do I improve this and how do I leverage it? Anybody else like to add on to that?
From the general manager perspective, I don't think we understand it. Like, we see all the data, but nothing registers. So you look at it, you're like, what is it even trying to tell me here? So to have general managers in the group that somebody could have as a resource, that's huge.
Well, I think also having partners that take the data and give us what are the 3 key actions that we need to take out of that data. Our general managers and our fixed ops directors appreciate that because we have so much data. Too much data. We can drown in data. I want to know the 3 key actions. What is this data telling me quickly? And let's get to work.
Yep, love
Very
that.
exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, that's critical. I think, and it's a little segue into how I'll answer my question, but it's really understanding what the data is. I think a lot of managers, I think, fall into that. They know the lingo, effective labor rate, hours per RO, but do they really understand what those metrics are? And what are the key drivers what I love about fixed is every number on your data set, whether it's Dynatron or DMS or whatever, there's a reason behind it.
Yeah.
Right? If you understand what it's telling you and what to look for. So great point.
And being able to serve it up to you, as Liza said, I've had the privilege of sitting in a lot of coaching calls, and it's like, what are we going to really impact today? And what are we going to do before we get back together? Very much like action plans you do at NADA or your 20 group meeting. But I really love that because I think what happens is data is power, but it has to be actionable. And so I really love that. Thank you so much. All right, Julian, I said you were leading into your question, so let's go right to you. Traditional metrics like service absorption has really been what most dealers or GMs have heard about or talked about in their 20 group meetings, and it guided their decisions. So what I'm going to ask you is, at what point do those measures fall short? And what should leaders focus on instead or in combination with? That's one metric, service absorption. What else should you really be looking at to move the needle?
Yeah, and kind of to the point of, I think service absorption or fixed absorption's a little misunderstood, right? It's one of those terms that, dealers, GMs talk about, but do they know what's really driving it? Do they know what it means and what's telling? So it's obviously a big, an important metric that we look at in our group, but it's also, it's more of a symptom than a root cause, right? Or I guess a lag indicator versus a lead indicator, right?
Love it.
So back to the point Jason made of what's critical to me, and I think probably most of us on this panel with big groups and a lot of stores, you can't get overwhelmed with the data. Right. You need to identify what are going to be those key pieces that are going to drive fixed absorption at the end of the day. And to simplify it, especially for my level, I almost went to the variable side on this, and I said, how do they look at it, right? First thing, the variable department looks at is what do they sell, right? I got to sell a car first, right? So on the fixed side, what do we sell? We sell an hour,
Yeah,
right? We sell
exactly,
an hour of
hours.
labor. So I've got to get a car through the door, and I've got to get an hour sold, right? The missing piece, and this is kind of new to our organization, we've really focused heavily on this, and you've helped us with this, is the second thing on the variable side is gross per vehicle,
Yeah.
right? Not a lot of dealer groups look at gross per hour
Yeah.
in their fixed operations department, parts and labor combined,
that.
right? So to me, the key, if you have those three things, hitting the goals and meeting those requirements, all that other stuff we talk about, effective labor rate, hours per RO, those are call it the root cause indicators, they're taken care of.
Yeah.
Key ingredients,
The key
right?
ingredients, right?
Yeah.
If I have cars through the door, I have hours getting produced, and I'm holding a high margin as maximum gross I can on that hour, the rest will take care of itself.
100%.
Jason, would you like to add to that? Because that seems right in your area.
And he nailed it.
He nailed it. I love it. I love that
Sure
in the
did.
panel.
I'm
He
gonna
nailed
leave.
it. He's like,
I'm gonna leave
good.
before I screw up anymore.
Meeting over.
Let me walk off.
You know what I want to say though, and it's different than the metrics you were just talking about, those are critical, but like when we talk big picture in the dealership and the importance of fixed operations, I just left another panel, and one of the best quotes was, service retention is the #1 most important metric in the dealership, because as we retain them, the service department, it drives everything that we do up front. Service retention.
It starts with that. You've got to get the car through the door first. That's job number one.
Yeah, and you know that it speaks to pricing, right? We never want to leave something on the table because the profitability of dealerships allow to grow and to acquire more stores. You never, though, however, sacrifice superior customer retention, which drives that service and bringing them back, not only for more service, but really bringing them back in for the next vehicle. I love it. All right, anyone else have anything they'd like to add? I love these.
Well, no, he took most of my answers for my question, but that's,
Okay, it was like he was in the class, right?
I'll come up with something in the next 3 seconds.
I'm a graduate.
He's a graduate from NADA. And all right, well, this is actually a nice dovetail into the next question, Michael. You know, pricing and labor and process decisions often based on habit or gut instinct, right? Or I'm going to next year increase by 10%. What mind shift has to happen? What change needs to happen for dealers to move from guesswork to really data-driven decisions in the fixed operation?
Well, that's a great question, and Liza kind of highlighted some of it as well as the data you have. What's interesting is that we sometimes forget the simple things, and I would think that a significant number of people come to the Academy and they don't really know what the vision is of their service department. I know that going back to vision, but I don't think that they really know why are we here? What is the why that we do this for? Is it customer experience? Is it service retention? Do we know that that is the single most important thing? And then when we go through and develop our processes, does this still support our vision, you know? So I really think it comes down to vision and the processes that support that vision over and over and over again. You know, the slight edge, you know, that we're just reading the book as a group, you know, and things like that. I think that's really the key thing. It sounds simple, but very few people, the dealer might know what their vision is, but the whole team doesn't know what the vision is, and the lot porter needs to know what the vision is to know why they're so important for this. So I think a big part of it is the vision and getting that down across the line. Then the other thing, highlighting exactly what you said earlier, we have a lot of service managers that forget what they do, what this vision is, but the inventory that I manage is the most precious inventory in the lot. If I don't
Amen.
sell that iron, it is gone tonight.
Yeah.
I can't sell
get it back.
tomorrow. And have we
Most
given them
profitable hour in the
that's right. And if we had given them the proper training to understand that, and then taking the data that you're talking about, understanding, as you said earlier, what does each hour cost me and what are the efficiencies? You know, one of the things when you think about getting a store from 80% proficient to 90% proficient to 100% proficient, and that looks good, sometimes we do that without thinking about the net profit that's being generated. And why that's important is this. When we go from 80 to 90 to 100, sometimes you might get that high by taking maybe a little lower, dropping a price at one time, but the proficiency goes up. But we think, oh, we're going to lose money, but your fixed expenses haven't changed at all. All you're changing is your cost of labor. My only concern about pricing is this. Very often, just what you said, we try to see how high we can get our customer price just so our warranty number's higher. And warranty shouldn't be more than 18 to 20% of our work. So am I potentially missing the opportunity with 80% of people because I'm pricing myself so high? And I'll get back to it, I'm probably close to my minutes here, is the biggest issue is affordability. We always think it's about affordability on the sale. It's affordability on repairs too. It is amazing how that is, and sometimes I'm worried that we're pricing ourselves out of the customer that's 3, 4, and 5 years to keep our warranty rate high when that's the smallest part of our business.
And you know, that's just kind of the icing on the cake after, right? Because really it's around understanding, like franchise dealers, understanding your aftermarket around you, that you are priced right, and giving that business intelligence to the service advisor so they feel confident. I mean, we talk about customers' perception that dealerships are the most expensive. I will tell you, working with 4,400 dealers, it's the service advisor that believes, right? Wait a minute, we're the most expensive. And so they start discounting, and that really cuts into,
Service
right?
advisors are the only ones who complain when you raise a price.
Exactly. So.
Typically, right?
Yeah.
The customers don't, but great point on that. And I think the other piece too is with raising prices is, I think too, managers oftentimes think they need to make drastic changes, right? Maybe they're chasing a warranty rate, something like that. I want to move my grid, $10 an hour, things like that, versus the bigger impact comes from maybe $1 here, $2 here on high volume operations that really, don't get felt, but they make a big difference. And to your point, go to the bottom line with fixed expenses under control.
I don't think that we do enough separation in our pricing between true high-end repair, A-level stuff, and C and competitive and maintenance stuff. There should be greater than a $10 an hour difference there. And I think that's where we lose out, and that's where we lose out on, I think, on service retention, right? We lose them at 3 years, or we lose them when they first tire change, or whatever the case may be. And we need to recognize that people shop this stuff. We don't think they do. It's pretty easy to shop it, so we forget that.
And one thing that I've learned, really over the last few years, I've been concentrating. The customer experience has to be there. If the customer experience is there, price really.
It becomes less of a factor.
It becomes less.
Communication rate is practically a much bigger.
So,
much bigger.
So how well do you market that?
Yeah.
How well do you market the things that we offer? Oh, we got the greatest techs. No. Well, the customers are really, what are the customers concerned about? How easy, can I get an appointment today? How quickly do I have alternate transportation, or can you bring me somewhere? But how often, and all of us offer that, but I rarely see it marketed.
It's the best kept secret.
Best kept.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, because what I really hear you all saying is it's the small incremental changes for an exponential result.
Yeah.
And you have to have that data in order to do that, because you might price yourself out of the market. You've got to look at that data. But really it's about, it does fall to the bottom line, because you've almost always covered all of your fixed expenses except for some spiffs, right?
Yeah, 7%
So,
of that should fall.
Love it.
I have a
Absolutely.
personal thing with my owner, and I it's almost like I say, if somebody asks me what do, I say I look for 1% of something every day.
Oh, I love
If
that.
I can
That's
find,
a great
if I can
quote.
find 1% of something in a company our size every day,
It's a big deal.
it's a huge,
I like that.
right? So
I think I read that comment in the Slight Edge just recently.
That's really awesome.
Right.
Okay, so if fixed operations is really going to become a true performance advantage, rather than a support function, which I celebrated 40 years in the automotive industry on Tuesday, and I remember when I first started in this business, it is truly creating that performance advantage. David, I'm going to come to you. What is the first fundamental change leaders must do in order to really change the status quo?
They need to hire Dynatron.
wow.
Okay, well, thank you. Mic drop. Okay.
Well, but here's why. Dynatron, this just came to me. You were talking, and Dynatron's like my seeing eye dog.
Yeah.
They help me see what I wouldn't normally see in a way that I wouldn't normally understand.
Oh,
Right? So
yes. Yeah, thank you.
for me to be, a general manager of many stores and be able to go in and see and feel and hear, I can't be everywhere. I can't see everything. So to have a company like Dynatron, and I mean this, because
On behalf of the entire team, thank you.
No, because I know that what I'm not able to see at a certain time, Dynatron's seeing for me, and they'll bring it to my attention.
Yeah.
So
Working with the coach, right?
Yeah, that's what needs to happen is general managers, the whole dealership. I think somebody on the panel said it, that the whole dealer, even the porter needs to understand the why behind the what. And most people have no idea.
What's an example that you've done in the group where you've gotten really some of the fixed operations that maybe would not have had a chance to sit down with the executive manager? How did you start to incorporate it, and how did that help you change the culture?
A few years ago, I was doing all these, what I call CITs, continuous improvement teams. And I thought to myself, one team we've never done it with is the technicians. Oh. So created a VOT, which is the voice of the technician. And we got, like Noah did when he built the Ark, 2 from each department, 2 lube techs, 2 from each dealership. We all got in one room, and there's big whiteboards in all the shops. So anything that somebody needs, they could write on the whiteboard, any issues they're having. But then we all get together and we talk about what we need to do to be better. And I will tell you that our fixed operations has never done better since we got that feedback.
Sure.
It wasn't because of the service managers or the general managers. It was because of the feedback we got from the porters, the receptionists, and the technicians.
So I had the privilege of being with him. His Volkswagen technician team knocked it out of the park. And so literally we went race car driving. And what I love is his technician was the one who told me about him doing this. But the other thing is that you took minutes during these meetings and you started out the next meeting by saying what you had accomplished. And I think that's a trait. When I look at all of you on this panel, and I've had the privilege to be with all of your groups, I see that commitment from the top. Do you really feel like, what could a dealer that doesn't? Because I would say all of you do that every single day. What's a first step that a dealer group could do?
And it speaks to Liza, something I picked up when she was talking in the beginning, and actually Dynatron got my mind shifted on this. Is the first thing is start looking at fixed operations, call it fixed operations in the dealership. Most dealerships have service and parts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and that was a big shift for us in the last couple of years from a general manager perspective, mainly in our group, to say you don't have a service and a parts department, you have a fixed operations department.
Love it.
Right? If you're sitting in a room with your service manager discussing something, the parts manager better be in that room too when you're having those conversations, right? And we've changed a lot of our meeting cadences and things like that. They're all in the room. Bring the sales department into the room too, right? Have those conversations. So I would say as a step one, right, if you're not looking at your dealership as a variable department and a fixed operations department, start there.
That's great. Thank you.
I feel like that was a big shift for us. We used to have parts manager meetings and service manager meetings. And they were the ones that stepped up and said, we can solve a lot more of these problems if you put us all in the room together. So when we have our in-person, quarterly meetings, they're all together. And now the GMs, we used to invite them, but people, years ago, the GMs they didn't come. Now we have to actually tell some of them, I'm sorry, we don't have any more room in the room. We find rooms, but now the GMs all want to come to that meeting. And it's not us forcing them to. And that's a shift in culture. And that's when all of a sudden it becomes a really valuable part of the team, and their solutions are being brought together, not just from one department.
When people own the process, then they become invested in it, and they will make changes and recommendations because they know how they fit into the overall vision of who we are. There's everything. Makes it sound really easy, right?
Right.
But this takes a lot of time. It doesn't happen the first meeting that you did, right? It takes a lot of time, and you demonstrate that you actually value someone's opinion when they do this. Whether we put it into place or not, we're going to discuss it. We say, does this work for us? But again, the more people own the process, the better the process exists. And innovation is what is constantly happening for everybody here to be able to progress with all the changes that we experience, which have always happened in our industry, just happen so much faster now because of the technologies.
I really think about the heritage of all of these groups. I mean, it's just, I think about what all the generations have gone through in our industry, right? And today more than ever, how we really get people to really elevate the conversation and attract individuals into our industry. I had the privilege last night to be at Northwood University. I've spoke on their CAM Summit. They are really digging into fixed operations to understand how important that is. And as an automotive university, 100% dedicated to that. But there's a big announcement with NADA that's happening literally just after our panel today, where you're partnering with Northwood to really help generations of dealers, GMs, to take real world experience, get credit for that real world experience, and continuing their education and how do we embrace it. But it's going to be a big partnership between Northwood and NADA. And last night, when I was talking to Kent McDonald, the president, I mean, they're absolutely delighted. And some people coming in our industry never, came into it from the family, but how do we grow them in it? We need that kind of talent and innovation. You have all been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your thought leadership, for giving really how do we dig underneath and what are some nuggets we can all take away from this. I want to thank Michael, Julian, David, Jason, and Liza. Thank you so much for being here. And really today was talking about how do we really change the status quo and build a performance advantage. And like our partners you see around here, we welcome you to come over, ask questions, create a safe space. It's unusual to have a dealer or GM that came up in fixed operations, and we need to do it together because when we do, we level the whole industry. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.